Can I get a round of applause for our three gentlemen in the back, our tech team, the unsung heroes of City Club, week in, week out, managing technical difficulties, getting us on the air. So thanks guys. On your command, Ralph. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Eugene's February 28th, 2025 program, The State of Electronic Media in Eugene. My name's Andrew Kalk and I'm City Club's president. We're coming to you from our home at the historic Wow Hall in the heart of downtown Eugene, and it's my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our speakers and to all of you joining us here in person, in a standing room only room, I will add, online and over the radio. Since 1990, City Club has been dedicated to our founding mission to build community vision through open inquiry. In accordance with our mission and purpose, we hope to help connect people throughout our community and across generations, identities, experiences, and perspectives. You are invited this week and every week to join us in this effort to share your wisdom, to learn something new, and to take active steps to make a difference in this city and region that we love. We cannot do this work alone, so a special thank you to our Platinum, Community, and Diamond sponsors. The Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, serving as a catalytic leader in creating a vibrant and diverse economy that drives economic opportunity and well-being. Kaiser Permanente, which exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. More information at www.kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. More information at uoregon.edu. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. And thank you to the City of Eugene and to Lane County for their support as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Joel Corin, the chair of our program committee and the coordinator of today's program. Joel.
Not that tall. No program about journalism in Eugene should start without at least a recollection of all the things that Anita Johnson did for us and for print media here in Eugene. Wonderful woman and a wonderful paper. The New York Times runs a column on Monday with Gail Collins, a liberal journalist and opinion person, and Brett Stevens. A while back, it went like this. They were talking about the Newark Star-Ledger. The Star-Ledger was New Jersey's longtime paper of record, which once fielded the largest State House bureau in the nation. It's going to shift to online-only format. Having spent my early career writing for local print papers, I've always been a big fan. Even if the stories were about, say, a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals aren't exactly eye-grabbers, they were always so important for the making of local officials feel somebody was watching and what they did meant something. Brett. Gail says, think online journalism is going to do the same job? Brett, the evolution away from print seems only natural in the digital age. What really worries me is that this is just the latest symptom of decay of our industry, particularly when it comes to local or statewide news of the sort which the Star-Ledger excelled. Part of what ails America is the pervasive local misgovernance abetted by the fact that state capitals like Trenton and Albany are, for many voters, informational black holes. Today we're going to find out what online journalism is going to do for us, or continue to do for us, with three speakers uniquely qualified to talk about it. The first speaker will be Chris Lehman, who's been reporting on Oregon issues since 2006 for KLCC, and in December 2018 became news director in March 2023. Chris was born and raised in Pennsylvania, graduated from Temple University, which is where my parents met each other, so I'm very grateful to Temple. With a degree in journalism, and his public broadcasting career includes stops in Louisiana, Illinois. Chris has filled in for national programs, including Morning Edition, All Things Considered. Chris has been to all 50 states and every Canadian province. Our second speaker is Ken Doctor. Ken is a graduate of the UO School of Journalism, believes the best days of local journalism are ahead of us. In 2020, he founded Lookout Local, Inc., and in 2024, he won a Pulitzer Prize for breaking news. Now Lookout, which has been successful in Santa Cruz and which he hopes to expand to 6 different markets by 2026, is starting here in Eugene as Lookout Eugene Springfield. Camilla Mortensen is a longtime local editor of Eugene Weekly, our alternative newspaper. They have 27,000 copies a week. Camilla earned an MA in folklore and mythology from UCLA, a doctorate in comparative literature from the U of O, and has been a reporter and editor at Eugene Weekly since 2007. She teaches journalism at the UO and in the morning before getting to the office, and she teaches news writing at Lane Community College, where she is the advisor to the Torch, and she insisted that I say that the Torch, LCC's newspaper, is back in print. She also serves on the board of directors of Highway 58 Herald. We'll start off with Chris Lehman.
Hi, good afternoon. KLCC is a public media organization. You've probably heard us called public radio, and we are. In fact, right now, even as I speak, we're blasting out 81,000 watts of the good stuff all over Western Oregon. But over the past decade, many public radio stations have rebranded themselves as public media. And the reason is fairly self-evident, because we're more than just radio. We're a multimedia news outlet. KLCC journalists tell stories using broadcast and digital tools. And people are responding. We're consistently the most listened to radio station across the area. And over the past year, the number of people who visit our website for news has doubled. And let me say that again. In 2024, KLCC's digital audience doubled. So how are we responding? We're expanding our news coverage. We've added a daily, locally produced public affairs program called Oregon on the Record. We launched a free digital newspaper called the KLCC Extra that lands in your inbox 5 mornings a week. You can sign up on our homepage if you haven't already. And let me talk about that for a moment, because a generation ago, those of us in public radio would have never dreamed that the word newspaper would be part of our portfolio. And of course, an email is not the same as a physical newspaper. It doesn't land on your front porch with a thud. You can't cut out a clipping and put it on your fridge. But with most traditional newspapers offering a slate of online newsletters, and with many of those being little more than a list of the stories they published the day before, well, it seemed like an obvious step for KLCC to take. Maybe it's not the most dramatic step. Email is not exactly new. But many people have responded telling us that our daily newsletter is a good way to stay up to date on what our newsroom has been working on. So yeah, we call it a digital newspaper from your radio station. Now, speaking of that newsroom, we've added full-time positions in the news department that allow us to bring you even more local news coverage. Here's some examples. In the past month, our reporters have covered the potential faculty strike at the U of O, the twists and turns of Eugene's proposed fire services fee, protests and demonstrations regarding the current presidential administration, turnover in leadership at Eugene's Whitebird Clinic, the impact of strong winds and power outages across our region, the impact of federal layoffs on our Oregon forests, the uncertainty that the Trump administration is bringing to our transgender community, people who rely on food banks, and people who use Medicaid. new strategies for building and repairing sidewalks in Eugene, the destruction of newly planted trees at the historic Doris Ranch, a credit union merger, tips on how to keep your pets safe from bird flu, efforts to make county parks more accessible for low-income families, and did I say that was last month? That was actually the last 2 weeks. We did all those stories, and that's with one of our full-time reporters taking a well-deserved vacation this week. So we're out there. We're doing the stuff. And I'm not the guy at KLCC who crunches the numbers, but I am very confident that our growth has been strategic and sustainable. We want our audience to know they can turn to us for smart, thoughtful, and balanced coverage of local news. And we want to continue providing that service for generations to come. And we've been extending our service by partnering with other news organizations. One example. We've been able to bolster our coverage of the Oregon coast by partnering with Yachats News, a nonprofit news outlet in Lincoln County that's run by a former Oregonian editor and reporter. We bring our digital and radio audiences stories from our public media partners around the Northwest, including stories from the state capitol. In fact, our newsroom is in daily contact with Oregon Public Broadcasting's newsroom about coverage plans. Now, OPB certainly has a much larger pool of reporters and editors than we do, but our newsrooms frequently consult about who is better positioned to cover important stories. You'll hear stories from OPB reporters on our airwaves and read them on our website. And OPB listeners routinely hear KLCC stories and read work from KLCC reporters on the OPB website. This isn't a new partnership. In fact, it's been in place for more than 20 years. KLCC also highlights the work of student journalists at the University of Oregon on our airwaves and on our website. UO journalism students regularly visit KLCC's newsroom and have the chance to chat with our reporters about their work. Now, the phrase news desert has been thrown around a lot, and sometimes that label has even been applied to Eugene. And I get it. We all want the glory days of a thick Sunday paper brimming with local content. But Eugene is far from a news desert. There are many great news outlets and journalists doing really good work in Eugene and Springfield and Lane County. The Register Guard, despite what you may have heard, still employs a very fine roster of journalists and photojournalists. And I think they're doing great work, including online. Our TV friends at KVAL and KEZI are an important part of our community. They're able to bring stories to life in ways that other news outlets can't. If you're looking for in-depth coverage of Springfield, Cottage Grove, Creswell, well, look no further than the Chronicle. Those folks have their ears to the ground in those communities. And of course, let's not forget the student journalists at the Daily Emerald, who provide consistently high-quality coverage of both the UO campus and the community at large. There are towns in Oregon that would jump at the chance to be served by a publication as robust as the Daily Emerald. So clearly, Eugene is not a news desert. I mean, we do have enough journalists to recreate the fight scene from Anchorman, so that's the standard. But more than that, journalists in Eugene, like journalists everywhere, want to tell the stories of our community. We want to hold those in power accountable, and we want to elevate the voices of the vulnerable. And just like everywhere else, sometimes we do fall short. Sometimes we do it well. Eugene can always use some more reporters snooping around the dusty corners of local government or highlighting the work of creative problem solvers or spotlighting talented local artists. KLCC will be doing that too, just like we have for nearly 60 years. Over those 6 decades, our audience has shown an amazing ability to adapt. We're still reaching a large audience on the radio, and now more than ever, we're reaching a large digital audience as well. Thank you.
So I think it was about a year ago that I talked with Joel when we started talking about Lookout Coming, and so I need you to hold me to 8 minutes with a wave. Okay, you got it ready? So it's great to be here. I haven't been in the Wow Hall in many, many years. I go back, as some of you do, to the days of Steve Goodman playing here and the Flying Karamazovs in the parking lot across the street. Anybody remember them? I thought so. I was just talking with Tim Gleason, the retired dean of the journalism school, and he said, I spoke to the League of Women Voters on Tuesday, and he said, that's your group. And it's true. They are newspaper readers and all. And it is really interesting coming back here. This is now my 17th trip back to Eugene. We lived here, my wife's a native Oregonian. We lived here for 10 years and raised 3 kids here at the beginning of their lives. And the odyssey of coming back here and starting to look at Eugene Springfield is a special one to me personally. Here's our table over here. I can't believe we already have a table of lookout people. The question I get a lot is, so when is it actually going to happen? Which is a very reasonable question, and I appreciate everybody's patience. We are going to make an announcement of both launch date and top editors next week. So finally, you will hear on it. I'd like to start with, I'll talk about Lookout, of course, but I think this moment in American life is a special one to recognize. We are in a time where of incredible suppression of the public's right to know and of greed, which has eviscerated many of the nation's newspapers, more than half of them. I was an analyst in the newspaper trade for 10 years before it was a far easier job, I would say, than starting a news outlet. But I did that for 10 years. I was able to learn a lot from people like Mark Thompson at the New York Times. And also I had to cover the loss of local journalism, what's happened at the Register Guard as it was sold to Gatehouse and then absorbed by Gannett is typical in now more than half of the country. And so we arrive at this point, a major change in national politics. We see greed in terms of newspaper companies that are essentially owned by hedge funds that are milking the last money they can out of older subscribers. That's essentially their business model. And we see many more attempts at suppression and cancelization. It is a fraught time. I'll give you 2 examples before I give you some details on what we're up to here. Just in the last month in Santa Cruz, and we have the largest newsroom in the county in Santa Cruz, 10 people. It's not enough, but it is the largest, and we do a hell of a job. We had on Inauguration Day, which was also, ironically, MLK Day, as you'll remember, a self-immolation in front of City Hall. This kind of happened, and very few people saw it, a couple eyewitnesses. The city suppressed the information. The police were outraged that we were asking about it. There were portions of the black community, since this was a Black Lives Matter activist who had done this in protest. And there were elements of the black community that said, as they knew we were trying to report the story widely, if you publish this, we will boycott you forever. We will make your lives holy hell. We did that story. We got that story out. We were the only ones that had that story at the beginning. It was a very important story of the time. We followed that up 2 weeks later with a story about a man named Adolfo Gonzalez, who was the first person apparently picked up by ICE off the streets in Santa Cruz with the new crackdown that is happening. He lived there 20 years, walked out of his house at 7:30 in the morning. 2 ICE agents came up, threw him in the back of a white van, and then airlifted him to Tijuana. That story, too, nobody would talk about. We dug that story out. Unfortunately, there are going to be so many stories like this. We've now started a series in Santa Cruz, the Trump presidency and local impacts, talking about the crackdown, talking about budget problems, which are going to be profound for all of us on a local level in government and education. So against that backdrop, that's why I have decided at an age where too many people tell me I should be retired to build more lookouts. Joel, we intend 5 through the end of 2026, please, not 6. And this is the second. We don't have any specific plans beyond this. This is a major undertaking. We're totally focused on it. We are at an office at 771 Willamette. We will soon invite you all in. We've had 3 groups in this week. It's been wonderful. It's a meeting place for both the public, and it's an office newsroom And when the Stephanie Bolger, the president of LCC, walked in this week, and we had a meeting with her, and she said, I can't believe it. We expected 3 or 4 people in a little hovel, and here is an actual newsroom. This is what these communities need. So it'll be 15 people in the newsroom. We have 2 starting right here. You'll hear more about next week of the others that are coming. And we will cover what a traditional daily newspaper covers topically. That includes, of course, government, education, environment, public health, arts, entertainment, food, business, you name it. The way I describe what we're doing is we are a community newspaper, hopefully a good one, that happens to be digital. I tried to come up with another name for it. That's what we are. And by being, 2 more minutes here, by being digital, saves a huge amount of money, which you all will benefit from as readers. The average newspaper used to spend 12.5% of its money on paying journalists. I know that from my analyst work. We spend 75% of our money on people, most of them, the majority of them, journalists. This is the value of digital journalism and how we can use digital disruption, which has been incredible, in favor of community journalism. What you will see when we launch is a through-the-day product, no more than daily. Chris talked about the evolution of KLCC, and that is kind of parallel to what we have learned. In Santa Cruz, we have 7 newsletters a week, morning and afternoon every day. Sunday, a couple food ones. Food, which Vanessa is doing. Raise your hand, please, there. Vanessa comes to us from Eugene Magazine. Food will be the #1, no matter how well Ben, please raise your hand, will cover county government, does. Food will be #1. But it brings everybody in. That's just the way it is. It brings everybody in, and that is really important. So you'll see that breadth of coverage. You will see neighborhood newsletters. We have harnessed technology, including our new friend, artificial intelligence, to create 9 specific neighborhood newsletters for people around Lane County. Those will be out there. We have an app that will be ready at launch to make it really easy to access our content. The questions on business model have come up a lot as I've talked to people over time. It is a simple one, and it's probably 250 years old. News publishing has always been supported by advertisers and readers in different percentages depending on the time and the economies of the time. The penny press of 120 years ago, that was a penny. The newspapers I worked at with Knight Ridder newspapers for 21 years, they depended largely on advertising. Our mix is about half advertising. We call it marketing partnership. Morgana heads that up. And then membership by readers, essentially subscription, but it's a closer relationship. And so that's what you will see. It is a site that does not provide all content for free, and we need to do that to pay good salaries to good journalists to bring you the work, but we do provide a lot of free content. All of our election content, which will be voluminous, disaster content, and there's too many disasters happening. Stories I talked about at the top about the immigration crackdown and the protests, we make that kind of stuff free. And we are starting to do a lot of Spanish language content, again, using the best technology of the day, and we are making that content free. So I know we're going to have some questions and answers, but I just want to give you a little preview of what we'll be up to very soon. Thank you.
Before coming here today, I looked back at the first talk I ever gave at City Club 10 years ago in 2015, shortly before I became editor of Eugene Weekly. And true story, longtime Eugene Weekly owner Anita Johnson, as well as longtime City Club member, asked me if I would apply to be the paper's next editor, and I said no. I didn't think I was ready, and the thought of holding together news, arts, events, culture, opinion, and steering the direction of a newspaper that in some ways epitomizes Eugene and Springfield was daunting. She ignored me, and invoking the desires of co-owner and former Wall Street Journal editor Fred Taylor, she made me the editor anyway. And I am grateful she believed in me. 10 years later, I am still learning every single day. So here's some of what I've learned about the relationship between this newspaper and our community, because after almost a decade as editor, I'm about to become the paper's next local owner. The City Club I spoke at, way back when, was the digital disruption of media, learning to embrace the change. A decade later, albeit with some bumps along the way, I never thought I'd be a newspaper editor during a global pandemic and a nationwide reckoning with systemic racism, and then an embezzlement. Here we are. The digital is even more embraced now more than ever, but as it turns out, when it comes to print publications, the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated, as Mark Twain is slightly misquoted as having said. While Eugene Weekly has long had a robust digital presence, we started posting online in about 1997. We print about 28,000 papers a week, and those papers are snapped up. Eugene Weekly is a combination of a community newspaper and an alternative news weekly. We were founded in 1982 as What's Happening, and many of you still call us that, as a calendar to fill in the gap after the Willamette Valley Observer folded that same year. The founders wanted more than a calendar. They wanted a newspaper, a place to know where the latest protest was, a newspaper that would hold political and community leaders accountable, as well as celebrate local music, food, arts, and more. Over the course of more than 40 years that Eugene Weekly has been printing, you have loved us for our fun and our snark. You have written us angry letters about our fun and our snark, and about occasional words that I'm not going to say on the radio that sometimes we use, and embraced us for all the news coverage, arts writing, and more. As the Alt Weekly, we provide an alternative angle, a deeper dive, a perspective that is missed by the mainstream press. We don't just start with the facts that are handed to us, we pursue the truth. When climate change became a focus in the 1980s, the mainstream press tried to give those who did the scientific research equal coverage to the industries trying to downplay the problem, when it was not an equal issue. As a result, the mainstream media created a false sense that there was an actual debate over climate change rather than scientific facts. We're still wrestling with the effects of that today, as the current administration devastates the environmental laws and the agencies we need to combat the effects of climate change: bigger storms, floods, heat waves, and wildfires. We need the mainstream media. We need news outlets to report on events and convey facts on a daily basis. Eugene Weekly has always sought to do more. Our reporting has an impact right here in the community, and I'm proud of that, because that's what community journalism should do: make the world a better place through care and through transparency. When thinking about where you get your news, look for a mission statement. We have one, and this is how it starts. Eugene Weekly exists to boldly question prevailing wisdom and authority. We expose corporate practices and public policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. We provide a voice for the oppressed and dismissed and support unfettered artistic expression. As informed citizens, we carry responsibility for community leadership. We advocate aggressively for environmental sanity, government accountability, sustainable economics, social justice, cultural diversity, tolerance, and the lively, free interchange of ideas and opinions. That is our guide as we run this newspaper. In true Alt Weekly fashion, we seek to surprise, to inform, and to entertain. We've written about riding along with the Free Souls Motorcycle Club and the local fetish scene. We run a political column by a retired pastor, a beloved hiking column, and we also run Savage Love, which has introduced my copy editor some words he never saw in the Register Guard. Several years ago, we undertook a project to write obituaries for our unhoused community members to give them the dignity in death that they were denied in life. Sometimes we find out about the deaths from those of you who work with the unhoused in the community, and other times it's their own family members that reach out because they could not provide help to their loved one when they were alive. We started with Annette Montero in 2019, who was run over by a Santa Pack truck while sleeping outside. We've written about the son of a county commissioner who died due to the effects of untreated mental illness, and most recently, Ron Buss, who used to distribute his own newspaper, Our Streets of Eugene, for $1 outside Kiva Grocery. We believe it's our duty to promote civic conversations year-round in our opinion pages, but especially during campaign season. So every election, we interview as many candidates for political office in person as we can, and debate and discuss them, and issue our election endorsements. As the news media landscape has changed, we've changed some of what we do, both in what we publish and how we publish it, from print to online to those popular e-newsletters. I write the salty one on Tuesdays, by the way, that's me. We remain true to our mission statement. Every week, our drivers and delivery folks put out papers all over the county. And for those of you who want a paper in your actual inbox, we mail subscriptions. And I know that doesn't mollify those of you who want the paper back up on the coast or up the Mackenzie, but we are working on it. Near and dear to my heart, we run solutions, investigative, and local reporting by University of Oregon and Lane Community College students. And I'm going to give it a shout out again here to my LCC students, The Torch, who brought that newspaper back to life. The Weekly has won national and regional awards for its coverage of homelessness, mental health, the justice system, tax subsidies to businesses, and allegations of police misconduct. Our student writers have beaten Pulitzer Prize winners. Eugene Weekly has been a launching pad to news organizations such as the Oregonian, the Wall Street Journal, OPB, Bloomberg, CNN, Seattle Times, Associated Press, the New York Times, High Country News, USA Today, to my shock, Fox News, and of course locally, the Register Guard and the Weekly itself. And then there is the embezzlement, which is firmly in the hands of the Eugene Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. I've learned a lot about that kind of financial crime and how it happens. Most of the time, companies don't call the police. It's too embarrassing, or they can't afford the forensic accounting necessary for the police to go after the crime. We were honest and transparent with our readers, and we will continue to be. We almost closed forever. We stopped printing. We kept going, kept the news going, kept publishing online and breaking stories. With the help of student journalists, we broke the news that mattered to this community, like the investigation into allegations of retaliation and bullying against the now former 4J school superintendent. We knew the community needed the Weekly, and we kept providing the service the community has come to count on. And you folks in the community responded and kept showing up, supporting us with your encouragement, your fundraisers, your contribution, and your desire to have us back in print. And the local media responded. KLCC, the Register Guard, the local TV stations, all showed up. All those things kept the doors open. This community and its media sources may disagree and compete, but we always show up. Our diversity is needed, and so are those moments literally when we are all on the same page. If there's one thing I learned in all this, is that you cannot discount how and why readers want to access the news, and the Sudoku, and the horoscope, and the crossword. Tom Tomorrow's back this week. With Eugene Weekly, our readers access all this free online and free in print, thanks to our amazing local advertisers and ongoing support from you folks in the community. When the longtime owners of the Weekly never took an profit from the paper, even when it was profitable, they put the money back in. That's the tradition of the paper and the tradition we continue as we work to make the Weekly into a truly community-owned paper, exploring nonprofit ownership models. Thank you to the readers of the Weekly. We've been here for 40 years, and thank you to the readers. The Weekly and our red boxes plan to be around for at least 40 more. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We'll begin our question and answer in just a moment, but first, a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station. You've heard from them today, KLCC 89.7 FM, for airing City Club programs Monday nights at 7 p.m. For those listening at home or in the car right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning into City Club on KLCC, and we love that you're here. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived on KLCC, as well as on our YouTube channel and as podcasts. We'll take a brief break and get back for questions. Thank you.
and reporter and editor, Bob Kiefer. Bob?
This question is for Ken, and that is the name of your outfit is Lookout Local, and you emphasized the fact that you're a local organization, and yet you're a corporation that's registered in Delaware and based in California. Aren't you just another chain like Gannett?
No. It's the
But
quick
you
answer.
just announced that
I remember
you're expanding into
I
5
thought we
more
talked about that.
markets.
Sure, I'm happy to answer your question.
Yeah.
Lookout Local is the name of the company. It's a public service, public benefit company. It is registered in Delaware. It is incorporated in Delaware, registered in California and the state of Oregon. And our whole model is that the journalism is local and will be run by a local team. That's the start of it. We have 20 people here.
Good.
We're using a model where that we can use the technology and the advertising and membership learnings that we've had so that we can make this work here, but that it is run locally, and that's the model for Lookout overall.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Meyer. I'm a local folk music producer, community organizer, licensed clinical social worker, and do a lot of projects, a lot of workshops. I do several volunteer concert productions a week. And my question is, in community work, I've had a lot of difficulty with these organizations. The KLCC folk music show is syndicated. Folk music should not be syndicated. It's community music. We're in a community crisis right now with the way that the world is trampling over communities. And I can't, thousands of musicians I've worked with, multicultural musicians, are not getting onto the airwaves. These shows are not being announced. The Eugene Weekly has maybe one featured show of an entertainment thing a week. It's very hard to get community activities into the media. And I'm wondering how we can do better. I feel like I've been demonized, marginalized, and I'm just doing this as a volunteer. And
Mike,
I don't
please
know,
ask-
I don't
ask
know
the
what to
question.
do, and
What-
I need help.
Anybody wish to respond to that?
Okay, I know, I don't know the history here of that. I know that community events of all kinds and community briefs are one of the kind of the foundations of what we will do. We'll have a complete events calendar from the beginning. We've heard, Amanda, you say 3,000 nonprofits, so we still have to check that number. But we have a lot of briefs that are going to run through here. So we consider ourselves an information medium, and we'll do our best to get in the wide array of content as you're suggesting.
I'm sorry, I just
Thank you,
wanted
Mike.
to add that the electronic media isn't working for me.
Mike?
People don't come to the shows from electronic media. Yeah. And they're sold out shows.
We have, and we have since we were founded in 1982, a long-time events calendar, which we post all the events in that are sent to us. Thank you. And I appreciate when you submit things. That is great, Mike. And I would love to get more things in print. I would love to have, and I understand your concern, we do sometimes only have one music event featured. We try to do more, and we always post extra online. But yes, if anyone has any solutions for us getting more music events in print, I would love to hear about them.
The only way we're going to get through this crisis of times. It's the only way.
Thank you. Next question, please. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, I'm Jane Elliott. I'm a City Club member, although I left my badge home. Ken, I'm wondering, I have the feeling that you would have told us if you were going to tell us, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you have a prediction or a guess, or can you tell us how much subscription is going to cost?
It will probably be under $200 for a year and under $20 per month.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's
to become coming very soon.
David?
Dave Hidenke, a longtime City Club member and recovering journalist.
Still?
For those of you that don't have 50-year-long memories in Eugene, I was a reporter for KZL and KZI before I got into ACLU and other work. A quick comment, Camilla, if you want to keep doing candidate endorsements, the weekly cannot be a nonprofit only.
You can be nonprofit owned. The weekly cannot be a nonprofit and do that, but you can be nonprofit owned like the papers in Philadelphia and Tampa and elsewhere. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And Ken, can you talk a little bit more about why you chose the public benefit corporation model for Lookout?
Yeah, we chose it at the beginning. I talked to a number of people as we were forming, and we worked with a social impact practice of a law firm. There's a lot of social impact work in the Bay Area. There are several reasons. The very quick ones, given the time we have, our ability to, what Dave just brought up in terms of endorsements. We believe, I have a long tradition working in Knight Ridder newspapers, that endorsements in local races are very important. We just did, and I did 22 hours with 22 candidates in Santa Cruz at the last election. We do that. We cannot do that as a 501c3. In addition, we wanted to be part of the business community. We support nonprofits, in fact, in everything we do journalistically, but also we've given $30,000 to nonprofits in Santa Cruz. We wanted to be part of that business community. We actually won 2022 Small Business of the Year award from the Chamber in Santa Cruz. And lastly, we are trying to build companies, very locally run companies of journalists and friends, which is how we describe the company, they're building a company to last. So we offer stock options to the employees of Lookout so they have a long-term interest in staying and building it.
I will just add, KLCC, like public media organizations generally, we do not have a tradition nor do we intend to issue political endorsements, but we are very much a part of the election process in the terms of our coverage, and also KLCC journalists routinely moderate political candidate forums held right here at the City Club of Eugene.
Next question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just wanted to,
Go ahead,
thank
Camilla.
you. Thank you so much, David, for giving me the chance to clarify that. No, a nonprofit cannot do endorsements. However, a nonprofit-owned newspaper can, because the newspaper continues as a business. We're also looking at perpetual purpose trust or a combination. The big thing for us is that the weekly continues being the newspaper that this community rose up for, and that we keep doing what we're doing, and it's a community-owned paper.
Yes, thank you for presenting the local media's plans for the future. My name is Dr. Dan Ballin from the federally recognized San Carlos Apache tribe. I completed my doctorate in behavioral health September 12th. We're running for Congress in this district. Besides expressing my appreciation to the local media, KVAL and KLCC, for airing part of my campaign, I want to voice my disappointment in being excluded from Eugene Weekly, which say they are a voice for the oppressed and dismissed. Eugene Weekly failed at these things when they covered Val Hoyle and Justin Phillips' campaigns, two local white people with bachelor degrees, while I was clearly excluded. It is rare for an American Indian to earn a doctorate degree. It is rare for a homeless person to run for federal office. It is extremely rare for an American Indian to run for federal office. Yet Eugene Weekly contributed to the oppression and invisibility of the American Indian by not covering my campaign. I'd even reached out face-to-face at Eugene Weekly in August, and they had my contact information, and I was waiting for an interview that never came. After election night, I switched to the Republican Party, and I will run in the 2026 Republican primary. My question and request is that Eugene Weekly make up for the wrongs and run a story on my campaign to win the 2026 Republican primary here in Oregon's 4th Congressional District. Thank you.
Absolutely, I would be glad to do that, and I apologize that we did not address your campaign.
Yes.
I would be glad to.
Thank you.
And we will, City Club will also have a forum for those candidates running for elected office, so we look forward to seeing you again. Thomas, and we want everybody to endorse Thomas to be president of City Club next year. He's already won, so it's an easy call.
Joel, you should humble me. You're doing the opposite. I'm Thomas Fura. I'm a City Club member since 2019. I have a simple question. It's kind of about the death of truth. Very cheerful. We're seeing this administration pull a bunch of objective data down from websites. I just also think in general, we've lived in a landscape now for a little while where it's so easy for false information to travel at the same speed or even faster than reputable information that has to go through sort of veracity confirmation. So what's this landscape like for you all to do your jobs?
Well, there are always challenges at any point in history or society, and certainly we've been scrambling as a news department for us, and I think the news media generally, to just even keep up over the past month. That being said, we continue to find good resources. I think there are ways to get information that involve trusted local partners. I would say, generally speaking, our local folks here in Eugene, in the Willamette Valley, have been good to work with and very forthcoming with information. We don't typically directly, contact DC, as it were, but there are many federal agencies with a huge footprint in this area, as you know. So it's a challenge for sure. I don't think we're deterred from doing our job, but it will definitely be more difficult.
I think when you run an alt-weekly print newspaper, being quixotic is part of the goal. So it is a terrifying prospect, but also very much a huge part of what we're trying to do. And if I remember correctly, you yourself have run for office and been involved in politics, so thank you also for what you do.
For us, being digital is really the core of this, of the ability to, we don't produce one product. We produce a wide set of content and then use every means we can to get that to different audiences. And so it's very different than what the traditional daily newspaper did. We have a website, we have an app, we have the newsletters, we do a lot of forums, we do email alerts, and importantly, to your question, the issue of misinformation and disinformation is a profound one, which has only gotten really clearly worse as tech leaders have taken a knee to the president the last 2-3 months here. A kind of the strategy of ours is we can't compete, we can't take on each mistruth. They're infinite, right? What we can do is flood the zone with real news, factually reported by trustworthy reporters, which, and I can say this in Santa Cruz, has pushed to the edge more of the misinformation and disinformation. And then we use Instagram as well to reach younger readers. So those are among the solutions to this problem.
And I just wanted to add to that with that concern of misinformation, AI has very much become a really worrying portion that we are looking to deal with, and that's something that Eugene Weekly does not use AI-produced reporting and will not use that.
Hi, my name is Aria. I'm the editor of the South Eugene High School newspaper, and one thing I've noticed is a lot of my peers have less understanding of how to engage with traditional media and also less understanding of how to approach what often feels like overwhelming news and I guess just stuff happening. So my question is, how with your platforms do you want to interact with and engage those younger audiences?
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your question.
That is a great question, and also you're the editor of The Axe, correct? Yes. I think the fact that we still have younger folks who are wanting to be journalists through The Axe, through the Thurston paper, I think it's the Pony Express, that's still happening. For me, and I do have a spin on it because we're an alt-weekly, and I think one of the reasons people still like us in print is that you can sit down, you can pick it up, and you can take a moment, and you can breathe and take a look at it. And giving yourself that peaceful moment to look at the news instead of feeling barraged all the time, I think is one approach to it. And also, I always tell my journalism classes, the one thing I cannot teach is curiosity. And curiosity and getting young folks curious about what's going on in the world, I guess, is the one slight advantage of what a mess the world is right now, because I hope it makes people more curious about what they can do for the world.
So one of the things that we do that's been an important part of Lookout from just about the beginning, I think 6 months in, is a program we call Lookout in the Classroom. So it is clear that many of us in the room know the term civics that we used to hear a long time ago. Now the modern term is media literacy, basically the same thing. We provide access to one half of the students in public high schools in Santa Cruz County. And I didn't recognize earlier on Amanda here, raise your hand please, who is our community and student engagement manager. And she is engaged in talks with local school districts to do the same here, and we're getting a fair amount of enthusiasm. The idea is they need to know about their local communities, they need to know the local news, and we need to make it easy for teachers to have the kind of curriculum materials, quizzes, study plans, that kind of thing. So that's something that's really important to us, short-term and long-term.
Chris?
And I think what you've identified is really an industry-wide challenge, and I have not seen the perfect answer to that, and I think that a lot of us are trying very hard to engage with people of all age ranges, and so that continues to be a powerful radio station in our case. It continues, and we're expanding our digital presence. There does, and you know, I'll put on my old guy hat for a moment. You know, there seems to be a new social media platform that's coming along every month or so. So we're trying to be in all the places, but we also want to make sure that when we are in those social media spaces, especially that we're doing it well, we're doing it ethically, and we're adhering to our journalistic standards. But definitely, I mean, reaching people of, like I said, different age ranges is critically important for our society and for journalism specifically.
Thanks again.
I'm Carol, a Eugene resident. I heard a rumor that the Lookout Santa Cruz was the smallest and newest organization to win a Pulitzer. Is that true? And could you talk about that?
Well, actually, it turns out while Pulitzer is a great name and the best prize to win, and we did great work, but we were fortunate to win it. I asked that of the Pulitzer people. The Pulitzer people are not the most organized people in the world. And we said we were 3 years and some months old. I said, well, are we the youngest? And they said, we don't really have records. So if you want to say it, we'll republish it. But otherwise, we're not going to claim it.
Hi, my name is Diane Fox Hindley, and my question, I'm really curious about Lookout, and I think it's wonderful that Santa Cruz has been the guinea pig for this, and there is now a model or a template, and I would really love to see an issue of the Santa Cruz Lookout, or at least some sample content, because I'm so curious and so, you know, It sounds like a wonderful idea.
Sure. We can provide that for you individually, or in addition, all our newsletters are free. So if you sign up for newsletters on the site, you can get a taste of everything we're doing day by day and week by week.
Okay.
But I can get you free access for your curiosity if you'd like.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christian Vital. I'm a local financial journalist, Ken. Hi. This is a question for Ken. Yeah. I am wondering, is Lookout going to disclose in detail its finances each year? And let me just continue, because you've raised a tremendous amount of money locally. Yeah. And a lot of people are curious about how your model works financially. Sure. Your operating income, expenses, how much profit you're going to be making, those kind of things, what people are being paid, all of those things. Are you going to be financially transparent, or is it going to be confidential?
So I write columns, often as I have, to readers describing what we have done. We do not disclose individual salaries of people. I've written nationally and locally about where we're at financially, how our business model works, the percentage of our revenue that comes from various things. But we're not going to disclose specific figures because it is competitive.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Andrew Kallick, just this week, the Washington Post's owner changed the editorial policy of that paper, and it once again led at least some cohort of subscribers to end their subscription. Yeah. And I wonder what the three of you think about that, and what advice you would give to citizens about how to support journalism, when to decide to pull the plug, and how to make those difficult decisions. Thanks.
The pull the plug part kind of scared me, Andrew. No. We are unabashedly, we obviously lean progressive. It's in our mission statement. That said, we don't stop. We enjoy the back and forth. We have a letter this week from somebody who is angry about something, and when we were getting contributions from the community after the embezzlement, one of my favorite comments I got from people is like, wow, I really disagree with your opinions, but I love the fact you print my letters, and so I'm going to support you. I've also noticed that the conservatives are always the first in our letters page. And I think that free exchange of dialogue, that conversation, I had mentioned during my talk, the On the Same Page, that was actually from our longtime hiking columnist, but relatively new back to us, Bill Sullivan. He had given a talk about newspapers, and one thing that's amazing about the role of newspaper is getting a community on the same page, reading the same headlines, and hopefully engaging that kind of dialogue and conversation that's so important, that social media with anonymity can get all over the place and crazy. And when people are held accountable with their names in the papers, they do engage in better conversations, and that's not something I ever want to see stopped.
Chris?
I think it's a really great question, Andrew, because, it's a free market, right? So if you don't like the product, why would you pay for it? If you're talking about sort of a local news subscription. But at the same time, we also want our local news outlets to have the resources to do the job well. So there is a little bit of a chicken and an egg kind of thing. And your local newspaper subscription probably costs more than eggs do, believe it or not. But I would encourage everyone to come down on the side of supporting your local journalists, because the money that you pay for the subscription, yes, corporations out of state and so forth, but they're also paying the salary of somebody in your community who went to that city council meeting, who went to that school board meeting and stayed up late and wrote that story and got the information out. So, I'm a journalist, right? So I want to see journalists get paid. I understand that we all have, needs in our own financial, outlook, but I would encourage you to stick on the side of paying for local journalism.
Well, I would just add, and in terms of the Post specifically, my advice to all of us is don't be too quick to pull plugs. You're not pulling a plug on Jeff Bezos. He's sending rockets off into space with his celebrity friends. It doesn't really make a difference to him on canceling that. What difference it makes is how many journalists the Washington Post are going to have. And they still have, even, and the number of people resigned, they have, I think 350, 450, I can't remember the current number, really good journalists who are trying to keep this federal government accountable. And to the extent that that business goes south, further south at this point, more of them will lose their jobs at a critical time. And so I think, the whole society could stand to kind of drop its shoulders a little and cancel less and take a little bigger picture view of what we need going forward.
Thank you. That concludes the time that we have. I assume that after today, all of the media outlets will be covering City Club every week, and we appreciate that. Thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you.
Leave it to the Jersey guy to strong-arm the media like that, You end up somewhere in the Meadowlands. That is all the time we have for today. Please join me once again in thanking our speakers. This has been the February 28th, 2025 conversation at the City Club of Eugene. Next week, we continue what's become a beloved City Club tradition, our annual lecture from Dr. Johnny Lake. Dr. Lake will speak about reframing the frame of DEI, the arbitrary nature of socialization in a democracy. You won't want to miss it. Have a great weekend. See you next week.